Next on Investigative Report. Sam Bankman-Fried, guilty or innocent man? There is an old adage that goes, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Especially if that thing is cryptocurrency. FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried would tour the financial circuit, ensuring investors and purchasers that the company was sound. FTX would solicit major sports figures and celebrities alike to vouch for cryptocurrency without fully understanding the medium of exchange. Unfortunately, most of the celebrities will lose their investments, and some will be named in a class action lawsuit against the company. Before its collapse, FTX Corp would enjoy a wealth of finance that would earn it a valuation similar to General Motors after merely 3 years in business. The Bankman-Fried staff will be frequently photographed analyzing data with the company's hourly valuation.
And everything that you do take.
That is until FTX House of Cards collapsed and Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas, returned to America, where he would face wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering charges. And now, Sam Bankman-Fried, guilty or innocent man?
You are strong, you are brave.
Sam Bankman-Fried, the cryptocurrency king of the Bahamas. He enjoyed the music in the lap of luxury, but now was time to pay the piper. Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF as he is better known, was arrested without incident 1 year ago by the Bahamian officials and will be extradited for trial to the United States for crimes ranging from bank fraud to foreign bribery. But how could one young man cause this much damage equivalent to a Bernie Madoff or Elizabeth Holmes without help? At the offset of this report, we sought to uncover if SBF actually sought to make cryptocurrency profitable for users and investors alike, or if this was some huge Ponzi scheme. Facts research in this case gave us an indication of both, and for sure he was not pulling the strings of this monstrous scheme. Nor did he defraud untold investors with Carolyn Ellison alone without detection from people who were really good at understanding high finance. What we found was that not only did Sam have people who either financed, regulated, or greenlighted him that knew what he was doing, but played along just to get paid. Also, what we discovered is that the same players in every boom of new global startup are the same figures out the door with the non-disclosure clause when a scheme goes up in smoke. This is a story not about Sam Fried, a little fish, but about the big fish that pulled the strings and got away from federal scrutiny and arrest. But this is not the first nor the last Ponzi scheme in the new digital age. The first mention of them dates back 100 years to the day that Sam Bankman-Fried formed the FTX Corporation. The phrase Ponzi scheme itself was coined due to the unscrupulous behaviors and dealings of late Charles Ponzi, who developed elaborate fraudulent schemes that lured new investors and paid profits to early investors with funds from more recent investors. This is where similarity between the two men fades into nothingness. Ponzi was hated in his day for being crafty and wily. Fried was seen as a kid who didn't really have a grasp on what he was trying to accomplish. A Ponzi scheme maintains its allure just as long as investors continue to contribute new funds, and as long as most of the investors do not demand full repayment or lose faith in the non-existent assets they are purported to own, which is precisely what brought SBF and FTX down. Charles Ponzi may have been the first, but his concept has been morphed by thousands of people ever since to include such names as Bernie Madoff, Elizabeth Holmes, and yes, recently, Sam Bankman-Fried. Today, Ponzi schemes have become a legitimate source of investment for the top fish over the masses. So that you may understand its design, I insist that we compare $600 million investment damage that Elizabeth Holmes did with Theranos to the $1 billion loss Bankman-Fried caused investors in FTX. As I said before, Bankman-Fried was not the biggest fish to fry in this whole debacle. Typically, the bigger fish swim free of the netting that federal officials and regulators gather smaller fish in after the Ponzi scheme collapses. In any modern-day schemes, you need 3 ingredients to make it begin and 6 total to make it last. The first is the masses of lower to medium income earners to finance the scheme. The next, you have the puppet who will operate the deal, and then you have the higher fish or the puppet master who represents a trusted face in society. Before people are robbed of their hard-earned money, all of these factors must be in place. Let's take former President Clinton for example. This particular former leader of the free world has twice been trusted face in some way, shape, or form for two of the largest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history. As example, you can see the former president on stage here with Elizabeth Holmes at the Clinton Global Initiative with Jack Ma touting her new invention to help lower-income people get access to much-needed blood test analysis. Since the former president's face is considered to be a trusting one, then his presence at any event legitimizes the aims of his guest. Additionally, since he is at the top of the food chain, he can be considered a puppet master operating the mechanics of people like Elizabeth Holmes for his own profit. Yes, she profits off the access of his time and face, and he by design achieves the same with his guests who want to draw closer to the future face of wealth, power, and influence. But those are just 3 elements that are needed. Here's a list of the 6 so you can watch out the next time a scheme takes off. Number 1, the masses. These are the people who enrich the pockets of the top 1% of earners in the United States with the bandwagon advertising. Number 2, the Ponzi genius of the year. This is a bright, hot mind investors clamor to, but who will take the fall should the things go south. Number 3, mass media for dissemination of this new concept through radio, internet, and television in order to bring in the masses. Number 4, celebrities. You need minor and major stars that will bring the masses to the Ponzi table. These people too will be blamed once the company collapses. Number 5, the puppet master. You need the big fish who pulls the strings of the puppet. Don't believe so? Look at that same former president on the stage with Sam Bankman-Fried at the cryptocurrency summit in the Bahamas, where FTX was headquartered. Finally, you need a government body to clear the road of regulations so the top fish can profit handily while the bottom fish struggle to recoup their losses after the fall. The big difference between those at the bottom of the scheme and those at the top is that one comes on board with non-disclosure agreements and letters of exemption in case there is a lawsuit against the company. Has anyone wondered so far why these 2 young people are looking at hard jail time while the puppet masters that brought them the vast majority of investors and dollars are free to move on to the next scheme? But I imagine most people would not believe that a former president could move government as much as a sitting president. Well, in part, this is true. For example, you have the case where President Biden chaired a summit at the headquarters of Theranos as part of the Healthcare Initiative Summit. This was Theranos' bid to move high-ranking government officials before they were discovered. The Washington Examiner newspaper wrote about the meeting that Biden played a big role promoting convicted fraudster Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. Similarly, over the last 2 years prior to his arrest, Sam Bankman-Fried sought to woo Biden's team and government officials in his corner. SBF was the second highest donor to Joe Biden's presidential campaign by $5.2 million. At the time, Bankman-Fried was a member of the wealthiest political super PAC named Future Forward. Prior to Fried's downfall, he met with ease White House officials no less than 3 times in 2022 alone. Time magazine reported that SBF was also one of the largest political donors in American politics and has been accused of violating campaign finance laws as part of a scheme to illegally funnel millions of dollars to candidates and political action groups ahead of the 2022 midterm elections. Bankman-Fried contributed more than $70 million to election campaigns in less than 18 months, placing him among the nation's top political donors. He personally gave at least $40 million to politicians and political action committees ahead of the 2022 midterm elections, mostly to Democrats and liberal-leaning groups, making him the second overall top donor to Democrats, only behind George Soros, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. In addition, He personally contributed the individual maximum of $5,800 to more than a dozen members of Congress, including Senators Debbie Stabenow, a Michigan Democrat, and Senator John Boozman, an Arkansas Republican, who leads the Senate Agriculture Committee, which has a role in regulating cryptocurrency. Stabenow and Boozman introduced a bill together last year that was intended to give FTX a path towards regulatory compliance in the U.S. Other lawmakers that received the maximum donations from Bankman-Fried include Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Maggie Hansen of New Hampshire, and Cory Booker of New Jersey, and Republican Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. In total, federal elections filings show that Stabenow and Hansen were the candidates to receive the most money directly from Bankman-Fried that particular year at over $20,000 each. CNBC reported that Sam Bankman-Fried and his associates donated $50 million during the 2022 election cycle to politically active nonprofit groups that don't disclose their donors. Groups linked to Senate leaders Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, as well as other lawmakers, saw millions of dollars from Bankman-Fried and his allies. But these type of slush or hush funds are the end product of any well-thought-out Ponzi scheme. Well, even Bernie Madoff, while he was still alive, paid for access to political donations. As it turns out, Bernie Madoff was a pretty reliable contributor to Democrats. OpenSecrets.org has a list of campaign contributors. It's pretty much run-of-the-mill stuff. Since 1992, Bernie Madoff had given $2,000 to Hillary Clinton, $12,000 to Chuck Schumer, $102,000 to the DSCC. In the case of Theranos in 2015 and 2016, while Theranos faced scrutinies from financial and medical regulators, the organization also took its first steps into the world of lobbying. Between those 2 years, the company reported spending $640,000 on federal lobbying, of which $400,000 was spent in 2016 and $240,000 in 2015, according to Open Secrets data. While it remains unclear what Theranos lobbied on in 2015 and 2016, public reports showed it engaged in activity with the House and Senate over issues related to support for FDA oversight of laboratory development tests and issues relating to lower reimbursement rates for clinical laboratory tests. In those 2 years, Theranos employed 7 lobbyists in 2015 and 4 in 2016. If you can understand the power and influence of the proper Ponzi scheme, then you can see why Sam Bankman-Fried is not as guilty as he is made out to be. In fact, we, the naive public, are more to blame than he, for it is we who seek to grow our wealth overnight in the form of scratch-off lottery tickets. Most Americans know full well that when they have not taken the prudent route of investing over their entire life, they may need to play catch-up towards the end of their life or when they feel most in fear. It is in these fearful times that the big fish move in and exploit the small fish with slogans like, "We are helping the poor," or giving access to the masses to enter the mainstream. And my all-time favorite is the line that one particular party is trying to move the lower class into the middle class. But what you never hear them say is that they are trying to move the lower class into the wealthy class. Oh no. If they did that, then you would be next door neighbors with them, and that is not what they are seeking. Now look again. Look again at either of these stages events and tell me if you would be invited to share a drink or meal with anyone in this group if you were not a top donor. Knowing this to be true, then why should the average citizen be drawn into trusting in someone who doesn't believe in them as much as in their compliance? If it were not for the fact that Sam Bankman-Fried and Elizabeth Holmes had become wealthy, they would be escorted off of the stage to wait outside with the masses who the top fish were trying to rob. And lastly, the glue that holds any multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme together is the tacit permission of the government for the whatever country it resides. At the height of SBF's tenure as CEO of FTX, he was able to move heaven and earth with Congress of the U.S. to lower or stop regulation as it pertained to Bitcoin, which allowed the entire debacle to grow into a larger monster. It was Sam Bankman-Fried's close relationship with Bahamian government that would allow him the ease of hiding his assets and moving currency between countries. In truth, the Bahamas was chosen as the headquarters for FTX due to the fact that the corporate laws are lax for U.S. companies on the island. Legislation passed by the Bahamian government in 1990 allowed offshore international business corporations to incorporate, solidifying the country's reputation as a tax haven. The Bahama facilities offshore activities without requiring any accounting records, banking registration of companies, and registration of ships. In fact, after the chips fell in FTX scheme, it was the Bahama government who rushed in and performed an asset seizure of the Bitcoin company's properties and finances. The Securities Commission of Bahamas has now acknowledged that it was behind the removal of $477 million in crypto assets from the bankrupt exchange on November 12, 2022. SBF will become 2022's poster boy for assets fraud and go down unlike his handlers that promoted his schemes. But we insist that Sam Bankman-Fried was not the clever cryptocurrency king he made himself out to be. In fact, in testimony at his trial this year, he admitted that he actually didn't know anything about cryptocurrency. And then there is a cost that always added up at the end of any scheme. The big fish may take a hit, but in most cases, they profit handily over small fish who lose their entire savings or have their 401ks cut literally in half over the entire affair. For example, Theranos, the blood testing company that was convicted of fraud, caused several high-profile investors to lose millions of dollars between 2013 and 2015. Some of the investors who had a stake in nearly worthless startup were the Waltons, founders of Walmart, with $150 million. Rupert Murdoch with $125 million. The DeVos family included Education Secretary Betsy DeVos with $100 million. Henry Kissinger with $3 million. Jim Mattis with $85 million. And Robert Kraft with $1 million. FTX, on the other hand, lost more than $8 billion of its customers' money in the collapse of crypto exchange in November of 2021. Some of the money was misused by FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried and his hedge fund Alameda Research. At least $1 billion, possibly as much as $2 billion of his customers' funds have gone missing. FTX also lost more than $2 billion in value when its token, FTT, plunged after Binance announced plans to acquire the company. But this won't stop with the next bright-eyed, bushy-tailed schemer from stepping forward. If you want to see who it is, just watch us, the general public. Watch how we line up to invest our funds into something we know nothing about. Watch the grandiose promises from the schemer as echoed by the stars we look up to and the big fish we trust. Then watch how congressional leaders who receive top political donations lower regulations for the company to exist. Maybe Sam Bankman-Fried will finally get the rest he needs in jail for running as Elizabeth Holmes once did. A time off from the fast track in life, standing in the gap between top fish and the low investor. For Investigative Report, this is Charles Rivers. We thank you for watching.
And we're clear.